Hi, everyone. It's just starting. And so what's going to happen is that I'll just give it a couple of minutes because there's people that have one or two little issues with the meeting, but we're off to a very good start. So just yeah, if you don't mind, just waiting a moment, and then we'll begin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Just as a note to everyone today, there will be no Q&A session because we are going to be having just an address today. So just be there just another couple of seconds and we'll get going. Yeah. Hope everyone is well. I'm about to start with my presentation. And I hope that everyone can see this. We're already up with quite a large number of people coming in. Yeah, at 6:35, I'm going to start. Thanks again, everyone, for taking your time to join in, and everyone that's shared out the links. While we're here, I'm very happy to say that the last AMA in October that we had is the most successful event that Blocktrade has ever held, in the sense that we've had thousands and thousands of views on YouTube, more than 5,000 plus on and off. In the main event, we had close to 1,000 people. So yeah, it's exciting times for us. I feel really good about this. And yeah, thank you again for joining us again so soon. And it's 6:35, so we're gonna start. So I AI generated this picture. Our sessions so far have been very much just me and the computer. I apologize. We don't have budget for special effects and things like that. So I use my little AI tools for everything.
Hallo zusammen und herzlich willkommen zur 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue à la 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Hola a todos e benvindos ao 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Ciao a tutti e benvenuti al 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Cześć wszystkim i witajcie na 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Здраво носите и добро дойдовте на 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Всем привет и добро пожаловать на 2024 Blocktrade Annual Address. Thank you for joining us, and let's mega make the ecosystem great again.
So there's my little speech. I know someone told me last time, get on with it. Don't play us videos, but I'm gonna do what I like because this is my address. I just like to add a few little things to share with you guys because I think as I travel through my daily work and everything else that I do, there's a lot of things that touch me and a lot of things which inspire me to do things, and I want to share these with you. in this particular annual address, and we'll get into it. It's basically this. It's a wrap up for the year. We've only got 1 month to go, a couple of weeks before Christmas, so I wanted to talk a little bit about not only the how the company is going for those who are investors, and also about how things are for the users, but I wanted to talk about the state of the entire ecosystem and cryptocurrency as it stands. So I'm going to share a few videos and things like that in between. I hope you all don't mind. It's really part, and I think it's positive and an interesting part of our discussions and conversations. Obviously, I know a lot of you are here to listen to some announcements and things like this, which we'll get to, but I hope you'll take the time to listen to what I have to say, and also see some value in the videos that I share with you.
Definitely the world's greatest living economist.
Professor Friedrich Hayek.
F.A. Hayek.
Professor Friedrich von Hayek.
All in language have been allowed to develop. Money has originated in the original form, but as soon as it was there in its most primitive form, it was frozen. After 200 or 300 years of coins, all governments put their hands and stopped any further developments. Governments said it must not develop any further. We were not allowed to experiment on it. Money hasn't been improved. Money has rather become worse in the course of time. And what we have had since in development are matters of government inventions, mostly wrong, mostly abuses of money.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
And I have come to the position of asking, has monetary policy ever done any good? I don't think it has. I think it has done only harm. And that's why I am now pleading for what I've called denationalization of money.
How do you think that it would work? Would the major banks such as Chase Manhattan issue currencies or gold coins issued, or how would it?
Well, the governments can stop people from issuing money. They can hardly stop them from opening accounts in something.
So that was a little video from one of my favorite economists, Mr. Friedrich Hayek, and he's quite opposite to Keynesian theory. And I wanted to share that because this is an interesting part of what we're about to get into, and the importance of, I think, the mission of Blocktrade, FSR Group, and everything that we are doing in general. I think that what we should be looking at is bringing order and not chaos when it comes to cryptocurrency and the ecosystem. So I think a lot of people who originally went into cryptocurrency, they were anti-establishment. They wanted to go against something or change the world order. For me, I think it's about bringing order and not chaos to regularize the issues. And what it is that governments and regulators should be there to guide us, but not become our overlords. And I think it's come to the point where things have changed. I think that regulators should rule for safety, not for their ideology. And money is a tool for the people to develop the economy for the good of mankind. And it should not have become a tool of oppression. And I see in so many places, we can see in those failed states, for example, where money has become a tool of oppression, a tool of the government to hurt people, rather than something which is there to help people, to enable trade, to enable the economy to grow. And I think really before money or the currencies that we use day to day came about, of course, economies couldn't grow due to the fact that there was a difficulty in trading for items. It's previous systems of bartering and such. What is interesting though is if anyone has ever been to Hong Kong, you would know that if you ever looked at the banknotes, actually the banknotes in Hong Kong are not issued by the government, except for very low denominations like $10. They're issued by banks. There's 3 banks, I think, at the moment that issue these currencies. And you can see it says here, promises to pay the bearer on demand at its office here, $500 in equivalent in the currency of the colony, value received. So what I'd like to say is that there's one of the biggest financial centers in the world sets a precedent for this, where banks themselves issue currency on behalf of the government. And so if ever anyone said that this couldn't happen or doesn't work, it doesn't make sense, because this is how it works in one of the biggest financial centers in the world. So with that in mind, I felt that, one of the directions, of course, I've spoken about this before, is a global financial group. But today we're going to talk about a transcontinental financial group. What does transcontinental mean? Transcontinental, really, we're talking about going beyond one particular continent, in this case, Europe. And that's where Blocktrade primarily made its operations. And we go to something bigger. And that's obviously how I came into this whole picture. And that's the FSR group that we have. And then finally, work Blocktrade itself moving forward. I think this is really an interesting and fantastic opportunity. And I will spend a large part of today's address to talk about some of these items going forward. Part of this as well is I will also talk a little bit about things that happened in the past, how we're going to look at this from a point going forward. And I wanted to use this particular picture. I'm sorry, it's very low resolution and not particularly high quality, but I wanted to illustrate how having a different perspective on something changes everything realistically. So you can see here, there's 2 people looking at a symbol. One person thinks it's 6, another person thinks it's 9. And this is a very important theme, because I think that all it takes is to move to the other side. And instead of looking at something negative, you're looking at something positive. And that is the attitude which I'd like to bring to the table, and which I think I have brought to the group. And I think that this is really going to become an overwhelming and overarching theme of what we will do going into the future, is about looking at something that to other people looks like it's trash or garbage, but actually we see that this is a foundation for things to come. So this is perspective. So welcome to everyone to the Blocktrade 2024 annual address. I would like to think that going forward, I will hold an annual address once a year. Of course, I mentioned in the past, in the last AMA, that I will hold many other sessions in the sense that I would hold discourse, discussion. I think everyone knows that by now that I'm a person who has been interacting and working closely with all the stakeholders, and I would like to keep that. Although at this point, I felt it was important that I made an annual address to talk to everyone, because so far we haven't had annual meetings. This may change, although this is where we are at the moment. And the idea is, as I mentioned earlier, a mega vision, Europe and beyond. So thank you again for everyone joining us. I can see the numbers are getting larger and larger. I do want to say now, though, that we actually will keep a recording of this and we will share it on YouTube. We didn't confirm that earlier because, I really think there's something special about hearing something live. And for me, it's like being on stage, me and my guitar. I like to have this kind of interaction in a real way. It's not scripted. And it really, I think I want to, with this, show that we're here ready to take on anything. Things that would kill other people, they do nothing to us. Things that make other people worried or they cannot handle, we'll take them on and we're going to make something great out of them. So that's why I hold always live addresses, and it also gives me, I guess, an element of danger, which I enjoy. So here we are. Today's agenda is, so we've had a welcome. I'm going to give a bit of a, what they call in America, a State of the Union. I'm going to talk a little bit about our evolution into a financial institution group. Something very interesting that I want to talk about is our fast track to becoming public. Talk a little bit about US policies, upcoming changes, how I would like to see the community supporting us for those that are shareholders or may become shareholders, and our next steps in the roadmap. Of course, we're going to close this out with our announcements, and I'll come to my conclusion. In between, I do apologize in advance for anyone that thinks that my videos or my speech is boring, but I will be including a few little videos here and there, which I think are important and interesting. The first one is a topic which, after I recently went through Europe, I really felt it was something that we should address, and I like to speak to those people that, especially that have been shareholders of BlockTrade till today. I'm only new to the company. I know that I can't be responsible for some of the things that happened in the past, although I think that I'm really trying my very best to give something and a hope for the future. This is a video of someone that I really like, the CEO of the largest company in the world. And it's actually interesting that not only is it the largest company in the world, it's that this gentleman built this company from one of the nobody companies and becoming one of the largest companies in the world, or the largest company in the world, over a very, very short period of time. And so I believe that it's vision that allowed this to happen. Basically, it didn't happen overnight, actually. It seemed like it did. It went from like a 100 billion company to a 3.6 trillion company. It went from a 1 trillion to a 3.6 trillion company in a very short period of time. But here's what Mr. Huang had to say to people, the group of students at Stanford University, which is one of the top universities in the world, and also one of the universities which produces a lot of, startup companies and very innovative tech companies.
To this day, I use the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. And the reason, and I mean that, boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I mean that in a happy way, because you want to train, you want to refine the character of your company. You want greatness out of them. And greatness is not intelligence, as you know. Greatness comes from character, and character isn't formed out of smart people. It's formed out of people who suffered. So that's kind of and so if I could wish upon you, I don't know how to do it, but for all of you Stanford students, I wish upon you, ample doses of pain and suffering.
So this is just a short version of this, and I think this is like something that really, really resonates with me. I've been through significant amounts of pain and suffering in my life. I continue to go through pain and suffering today. But one of the interesting things is that I really think that pain and suffering is what sets you up for absolute greatness. I'm not sure if I'm going to be someone great or anything along those lines, but I definitely know that this is something that is very important part of the future. In this case, I know a lot of people felt that they've suffered so far, and I apologize for that. Even though potentially I guess I haven't been part of it, but definitely we're going to move forward from here. I do want to, I just got a message, and I do want to apologize. It seems that like some of these videos don't have my audio in them. I'm very sorry about that. I'm not sure why that's happened, but I'll resolve that in the future, and I will fix that in editing for the YouTube video. So far, we come to the part that is the State of the Union. And at this particular point of time, what this is all about is just to address what's happened so far in the company. And, you know, that's really, to me, a good point to start from there. Usually, the American president also holds a State of the Union address. And I find that this is really a good way to start anything in an annual sort of point. So what we've seen here is that since we've come on board, and what people can see is that we've been really working on regularizing and fixing up our operations. This has been proven in the sense that while I know we've had some small issues, we've had some issues full stop. Overall, our operations are uninterrupted till today, and I hope that continues. So that's been really one of the very big focuses of what I've been doing, and yeah, it's something that I'm very proud of, that we've been able to keep everything moving despite all odds. One other interesting thing that I would like to let the people, especially shareholders, know is that we have, at the moment, the highest weekly revenue run rate in the last 12 months. This is a very positive sign. And actually, what I could say is that it's probably not just in the last 12 months, but it's actually quite some time. And this is really something very, very interesting to me. And again, very proud of, and really, really very much appreciative of the users that are here in this address, and the support and trust that you give in our platform. I really appreciate this. So it looks to me that, you know, we're on to bigger and better things, and we hope that this continues. What this really means for us is that the next part is that, you know, for the shareholders that are listening to this address, in my opinion, and to what I see, is that we're on the way to a strong financial recovery. I mean, this is you know, this is not making a statement as far as like an audited accounts or something like this, but from what I can see from the position of a director, it looks like we're on the way to a strong financial recovery, which is very important given the issues in the past. And what this allows us for is the development of new products. So, you know, really, this is why I've been ramping up the speed by which we've been addressing our users and investors, because what this really means is that we can bring other new revenue streams and build rather than just housekeep. One other point that we've had a lot of questions about, and I want to speak of, is actually that we've had a successful completion of the previous capital raising that was a prospectus was issued for in 2024, and currently, as it stands, is that we have roughly 1.9 billion shares outstanding, of which 377 million are so-called Class B investor holding shares, and those were priced and sold in the last capital raising at 24 cents euro. So basically, that gives us a Class B cap of around about 90 million euros. This is important as we speak about the next things that we're going to be doing. I wanted to raise this and speak of this because I think this is very interesting to those investors and shareholders. And it's something that we'll talk about a bit more as well as we move on. And one more final point here is that we have a total paid up of around about 23 million euros. What this means, and it's very interesting with the things that we're going to talk about, is that this number is an extremely important number for two reasons. It's an important number when it comes to perspective, as what I've mentioned in the previous slides. And it's also an important number when it comes to regulation. I wanted to, obviously, a lot of this information is also out there in our share prospectus information, but I wanted to highlight these numbers, and we'll touch on these a little bit later. Again, I apologize if there's no audio to this, but I wanted to share this video here. I'll just play it very quickly.
I think if you don't have at least 10% of your investment account in Bitcoin or Bitcoin-related assets, you're going to fall significantly behind.
So we'll add that audio back in during post, but basically what that video said, and I'll share a link to it, is that analysts are looking at this, that if you do not have at least 10% of your assets in Bitcoin or crypto-related assets, you're really going to fall behind in the new economy. And this is very important when it comes to product development and what we have for the future. And I wanted to bring this point up so that it gives us a foundation and a base for what we're going to discuss going forward, which is that we're looking to bring ourselves, as what we've spoken in the past, from a cryptocurrency exchange to a financial institution and a group. And the vision is to transform into a financial institution with a crypto-aware focus. We're looking at our core offerings being digital and digitized real-world asset trading, digital asset custody, financial and investment products, and B2B and B2C payments. We're also looking at issuer services. And this is going to be a really interesting point, because what you're going to find is that one of the first things that we're going to do with this is use these services ourselves. So what this is that we're looking at registration of securities, assets, and instruments. This is a service that we're specifically going to look at, I hope, in the US. And we're going to look at services in certificate management or share management, investor relations and shareholding, and much, much more. And I'll show you the opportunity actually right here. So besides my work at BlockTrade, I'm also a CEO, CFO, director, and president, a lot of titles, of a NASDAQ listed company. And basically all the US listed companies use a company to manage their depository shares and many other things. But their issuer services, I didn't pick a very good picture here. It shows that the price is down slightly, but actually it's been significantly up. As you can see in here, Broadridge stock rises 11% in a month, which is huge for a company that has a market cap of right here, 27 billion. Now, Broadridge it survives only with effectively a very small base of customers. It has systems which, in my opinion, and I hope they're not going to kick me out from being a client, but their services are somewhat outdated, and the systems they use are somewhat outdated, and the way they work is outdated. But they charge an arm and a leg, and that's why they can have a market cap of 27 billion. By using crypto, digital asset digitalization, I think the market can be 100 times bigger than Broadridge. Maybe the people or the market may not pay as much as big public listed companies, but certainly you can see from here that one company effectively has a monopoly in all the biggest companies in the world, and they have a massive business. So with this, I wanted to talk about the opportunity that we have. So I mentioned earlier that we're looking at issuer services in America. We're looking at various things. And this is because of some changes. Obviously, these changes have become very apparent in the last weeks with the election of Mr. Donald Trump as the president-elect of US. And I think this is something really like an opportune and very, very fortunate time for us. So here we're looking at a fast track to be listed. We're going to talk about this and how we can make this happen. It's going to be with your help. And obviously, anything which we're asking for your help and your support on, you obviously stand to benefit from it. We're looking at becoming a US issuer. And what this means is that that previously almost all cryptocurrency companies and projects avoided America because of unclear regulation. Basically, the US Securities and Exchange Commission was regulating by enforcing against people rather than coming up with laws to manage things. And all of this is changing. And with this, I see a massive opportunity in bridging the gap between Europe and the US. That's what I meant earlier by being a transcontinental financial group. So basically here, as an issuer, we can have all kinds of services for people, including proxy, trust services, assisting companies not only in Europe, but in Asia, all over the world, to issue their tokens in the US, where the US is hoping to become the cryptocurrency hub of the world. And if there's one thing I know about Trump, is that he usually does whatever he says. So we find this to be just a fantastic opportunity and something that we can take advantage of very soon with your help. Basically, what we're looking at is having BlockTrade as it is stands, which is now a Luxembourg company, and we have our BlockTrade operations in the EU, is to merge with a US-based listed company that's already on NASDAQ and make that effectively associate or subsidiary of BlockTrade and having operations in the US with BlockTrade. How does this also benefit BlockTrade itself and the whole group? And obviously we have FSR Group, which is, you know, not in this picture, but of course it's on top of BlockTrade, is that it allows us to, one, have all the benefits of being public without necessarily all the negatives. And number two, it means that when we're ready and we've built up the company to the level that we feel comfortable, we can press a button and become the entire group fully public, effectively, not immediately, but in a very, very fast kind of scenario. We're talking, instead of years, we're talking months. And we can do this because, firstly, I've already begun this process, and we'll talk about this. But also, the fact is that, you know, there's management in BlockTrade now that is very familiar with US laws and registrations. And for all intents and purposes, if we go down this road, we hope to build a team that is going to be even more expert in this when it comes to filing things like F1s, S1s, S4s, registration statements effectively in the US to register securities. And it comes to the point where even, you know, I saw recently someone that probably a lot of people don't like, but Andrew Tate was talking about this. And he's obviously been behind a few interesting cryptocurrency projects. But basically, it comes to the point where people are talking about it because really, this is something that the US really wants to make happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about the US policies here. They're looking at putting together a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I think this is super interesting. I wrote about this recently on Twitter and on LinkedIn and other socials of mine. But basically, I'm not a 100% believer in a 1 million or 10 million BTC. I can't say that for sure. I'll probably be proven spectacularly wrong in the future. But I think basically by putting together a strategic Bitcoin reserve, that is only going to help a lot of other cryptocurrencies that are moving forward. The US is looking at establishing a cryptocurrency advisory council, which is obviously going to be something that's going to enable a lot of crypto-friendly legislation and laws. It's already begun with the resignation of Gensler as the commissioner of the SEC, that they're going to do a complete leadership overhaul. Recently, I'm made aware that Donald Trump also met with the CEO of Coinbase to see their views and thoughts on this. Obviously, Coinbase is the largest US and the largest listed and the I think the main listed exchange. This is very interesting. And they've issued some really interesting tax initiatives, which basically says that these assets are going to be capital gains tax free. And I think this is super interesting because it also means that tokenized assets, which normally would attract capital gains, may end up becoming capital gains tax free. And if you're a big investor in the US, and that is where 60% of the world's capital is in, if you can reduce your capital gains tax, that is going to flood massive liquidity into the market. We all know that the US liquidity, market liquidity is just huge. 60% of the world's liquidity is in America. And one other interesting thing is that Wyoming State, of which I'm very familiar with, has enacted laws to allow the transmission of electronic money, electronic securities, and created effectively a new structure for getting a bank license, which is both federally and state approved. The first to get this was Kraken. They already have so-called Kraken Bank in the US. How far they've gone with this, I can't say for sure, but this definitely is something very interesting. And this is something that, I would really love to bring the group into. And I think that this strategy can really bring BlockTrade to become a global player, to become the group to be a real trendsetter as such. And I'm very interested in pursuing this. And I hope that our investors and our users and more leaders can help to support me to make this happen, because I think this is a really trend-setting, noble endeavor, number one. Number two, I believe that the frontier stage, the early stage of cryptocurrency is over. It was over when ETFs were approved and introduced, and we have massive asset managers coming into the market. So now cryptocurrency is becoming mainstream, and it requires corporate professional people to run the companies and run the projects. And I believe, of course I believe this, but I believe that I'm one of the advanced leaders in this sense, that I know corporate, I know laws, regulations, compliance, and that we can apply this to cryptocurrencies and digital assets. So as far as this is concerned, this also brings us to interesting things for us, which is we're talking about CASP and MiCAR. We're looking at Italy and Slovenia for this at this point of time. Italy because it's a G7 country, Slovenia because we've had a license in Slovenia for a long time. We currently operate out of Slovenia, and the First Lady of America is Slovenian. So if it's good enough for the president, it's good enough for us. Next stages, of course, is we're looking at e-money, US and Europe, stable coins and payments, and banking. But this is really where the epitome of where we want to be headed is an investment banking, a full banking license. We've seen what having a full banking license has done for Revolut, and I think that this is something that is really interesting and exciting. What I would like to do is build up a portfolio of licenses and utilize these in the coming future. And there'll be opportunities to hear more about this. And yeah, I share this slide as well, because this is a slide about regret. So for those that didn't know, there's a gentleman who is probably the most successful yet unsuccessful tech investor in the world, and then by the name of Masayoshi Son, who owns a company called SoftBank. He has a 100 billion fund called the Vision Fund, and he's invested or brought some of the most amazing things to the market. He was an investor in Yahoo, investor in Alibaba. He brought Apple to Japan, and he was also one of the major shareholders in NVIDIA, and he sold them this 5% stake, which is now worth 160 billion 5 years ago for much less than 160 billion. So over a period of 5 years, he missed out on more money than all the money he's made in his life, which is really interesting. At one point, Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world, yet he made that mistake with NVIDIA. And I think that this is something for everyone to consider in this address and what I'm about to talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can support bringing users, bringing buyers, and bringing investors. I mean, this is something that's very important here. We're talking about referrals. We're talking about investments in Academy and rebuilding our revenue streams. And we will have in future 2 new rounds of financing to finance some of these things that are coming forward. This will be used in a very strategic way. As you can see with my low budget AMAs and addresses, we don't like to use money for things that are wasteful. We like to focus on building real growth for people. And this is something that is going to come forward very soon. So for the next steps, we're looking at capital markets and the listing in the Q4, which is almost over. We're looking at beginning our merger financing and auditing. By Q1 of 2025, we want to look at the US expansion and enact our merger and acquisition M&A activity, look at getting licenses in Wyoming, preparation, file for an S4. And in Q2, we're looking at our licensing here, CASP, e-money, MiFID potentially as well. We'll look at that later on, but that's the kind of roadmap that we're having. And I guess this is the part that everyone's been waiting for and looking forward to. Set announcements, and these very interesting announcements that we're making today. The biggest one, I guess, is BTEX. So for BTEX, which I've seen in the last few days, which I recall saying, please don't pump BTEX, but here we are. We're going to be looking at BTEX. Perhaps conversion is the wrong word, but basically we like to make offers to bring BTEX holders. And of course, there's going to be a KYC and a review of this because of the nature of this, but we're looking at conversion of securities, and what those securities will be securities in our group. That means that can be part of what we're doing going forward, and also part of the listing going forward as well. This will also be in recognition of the support BTEX holders have given to the company. when it really needed it most. So this is going to be something really extra special, in my opinion. And we will put the details of how that's going to happen in the next slide or so. Basically, it's an offer is going to be made to those who sign up for a form and a program that we're going to initiate in the coming days. And on top of that, we'll be looking at airdropping bonus tokens in the future. And what this is about is that effectively to undertake the new things that we're going to be doing, I would really like to have something more than an ERC20 token. I would like to build a chain and an ecosystem. I would like to issue tokens in America to take advantage of those things and be some of the first people to issue those in the US under new regulations or new rules. And that's something that's going to be happening soon, I hope. And with that, I'm also going to talk about eCredits. Basically, as you all know, eCredits is a native token of the eSync chain. And previously I've spoken about this, but Blocktrade has made an offer to the People's SCE, which is the overseer or developer of the eSync chain. And this has been received very positively. I can't confirm everything yet because it's still undergoing, but if everything goes well, I hope that I will be able to host the first eCredits AMA by the 12th of December, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Of course, please caveat emptor on this. I can't confirm this right now, but this is what I would like to do, and I would like to do great things for the whole ecosystem. And basically, as part of what I've mentioned earlier about the fast tracking to public status and all of the amazing things that we can do, there will be a special issue on a memorandum that's going to be available in this link and this QR. So if you can, this will be posted to the Telegram group as well. It'll be posted on our socials, but please take note of this QR, take note of this address, which is www.blocktrade.com/IMF. It's available now. And yeah, just sign up there, put your details on. And basically what's going to happen is that we're going to review the lists and we'll start sending out information on the offers. And we're going to basically push this through. This is super, super, super exciting for me because I think that this is a realization of many, many things which I hope to do. I feel really, really comfortable and happy with the Blocktrade community. And, you know, I really think that I'm going to make this happen. If it does, we're not talking about millions, tens, or hundreds of millions. We're talking about billions here, because we can see this in comparatives. The companies that are involved in the activities that we intend to be involved in, and I think in many areas we are a potential leader for some of these activities, are all worth tens of billions of dollars. And I think that there's a shortcut to such valuations and shortcut to bringing our investors into this by undertaking some corporate activities. And I'll hopefully be able to detail some of these in the information memorandum. So please follow us on our social media, which is accessible through this link as well. Sign up on here, and I look forward to being in contact with everyone. It's really, really amazing, and I'm really looking forward to it. So with that, I want to say thank you. I'm going to stop this sharing here now. I really want to thank everyone for the patience that they've had, for listening to what has been an almost hour-long address, listening to my annoying voice. And hopefully I've been able to deliver some interesting messages that you get to see clearer the vision that we have for the group. And you will really continue to support us in developing and making our ecosystem great again going into the future. So wish everyone the best, and hopefully I might not see you guys in too much longer time if everything goes well, and that would be on the 12th of December. Thanks once again, and speak to you all soon. Ciao, and talk again soon.